The next step for the jewelry box, after we have our dados cut in all 4 pieces, what we're going to do is resize the box bottom. So I've got box bottom material for you. It's a little bit too big right now, so we're going to have to cut this down. But before we go any further, let me just show you what it is. Okay, it's a real thin sheet. We call it plywood. And so if you look close, you can see there's multiple layers here. And what they do is they take a real thin sheet of wood off a real tree, they peel it off, they glue all the sheets together, and they press it down and smush it and make these big sheets. So this thing comes in a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet. I've taken the liberty of cutting them down to smaller chunks, a little bit more manageable chunks for us. All right, so what we need to do though is we need to get this to fit in our project. If we look here, the dado stops right there, and the dado stops right there. What we need is we need this box bottom to be just slightly smaller than the distance from here to there. So we could get out a ruler and measure it, and then subtract maybe 3/16 of an inch, and then measure out how long to cut our board, or we can just kind of do something like this. All right, so I'm going to look at this end here first so you can see that. I'm going to slide this up. I'm going to slide this up so you can see here it just doesn't quite go to the end. I left a little bit of space there. All right, then I'm going to come over to the other side over here, and I know where it stops. The dado stops right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in a little ways. I'm just going to kind of estimate. I want to cut the board. I want to cut that much off. So again, this is not super precise. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that much off the board. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little check mark here, right? And I'm going to go ahead, when I cut this on the miter saw, I'm going to put my saw blade down next to the line. And so I'm going to do the same thing for the left and the right, or the ends. So again, you can see right here I got that big space. It's not quite out as far as I want it to go, so I just smush it out there. I got that little bit of space. So now what I'll do is I'll come over to this side, and I'll just estimate, well, right there is where the end of the dado is. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to say I want to cut it back to about that length. And again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my saw blade on the side of the line. Now, how are we going to cut this? All right, this cut should be obvious to us. We're going to cut this on the miter saw. We might have to use the slide action miter saw here. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to cut this. Now, we're also going to cut this side on the miter saw. All right, we just got to make sure that it's up against the fence in the back. It's flat on the table. It's a little bit less to hang on to, but there should be plenty. The reason why we can't do this with a real board is because we can't cut with the grain. Right, this side would be cutting with the grain, but with plywood, it just doesn't matter. Okay, so that is step 9. Step 9 is to resize the bottom. Resize bottom. Okay, and we're going to do that on the miter saw. And I'm going to tell you, the bottom should be slightly smaller than your dados. Slightly smaller than dado length. All right, that's it. Let's cut those box bottoms.